Hi, squirrels. Welcome back to Avy-HD. I am your host, Avy. I have HD. And thank you for being here with us for another episode that I'm scared of. I'm scared again. And today we are talking about something that we don't really talk about enough, which is fear of success and self-sabotage. Why do we do it? What is it? Where does it come from? Why do we sometimes or often sabotage ourselves just as things are going right? What is that pattern about? And the reason that this episode is so scary for me right now is because this is kind of a culmination of a very long process that I've been going through over the last more than a decade. And I guess it's time to share with the world what has been going on behind the scenes. Have you ever worked so hard for something only to mess it up when you were this close to achieving it? What the hell is that? And why do we as ADHDers fall into that trap and into that pattern so often? Fear of success often comes from ADHD-related struggles, like fear of other people's expectations, imposter syndrome, getting overwhelmed, just getting bogged down by specific tasks, and hitting what is a very normal stumbling block as a person with ADHD, but then translating that into a moral failing, right? We've been talking a lot about how specific elements of ADHD are just that. It's just the way your brain works. It's not a moral failing as a human being. It's just something that we need to learn and know so we can do better with in the future. Because it's not about blaming yourself. Nothing is ever about blaming yourself. It's about understanding why the thing happened so that you can work through it better next time. For me, this was my degree. Getting my degree from the university, whose name I can't mention yet, but when the full story drops, be sure to check it out because there's a lot to dive into and a lot of tea to spill with this particular story. I started to pursue my degree in what was originally psychology in 2010, 2011. I started my degree in psychology. For those of you who can count, that was 15 years ago. A normal bachelor's degree takes between 3 and 4 years to obtain. I started off in psychology. I lasted in psychology for 2 years and left school due to my mental health, and ultimately ended up transferring into social work, where I pursued my degree for the next 14 years. My bachelor's degree. Even now, as I'm telling you this story, it's a shameful thing to admit, because who the hell takes that long to get a simple bachelor's degree? Like, it's not such a big deal. Everyone does it. We know a lot of really dumb people, highly unintelligent humans who have higher education degrees. And yet I, a very intelligent person, couldn't do it. And for a long time, I stopped trying because I really felt like the stumbling blocks that I hit were my fault. And I could tell you 100 different ways where I was wrong. And it seemed like I was the only person taking accountability. And very, very honestly, it took some people who love me a lot getting angry on my behalf and helping me learn to be angry for myself because the treatment that I received was unjust and not right. Where I was going into the situation taking everything on myself and really considering all of these moral failings and all of everything that I didn't do to get myself into this situation, that I stopped fighting. for myself and just kind of accepted that I was a lazy person who wasn't capable of following things through, who was not able to achieve my goals. And I would just need to do things my own way because there was nothing in the regular world that was going to suit me. And there was nothing that was going to fit me. So I pivoted and I started my own company and I started a career where I didn't need a degree and I didn't need to prove myself to anyone. I just had to know what I knew. But there was still something that was missing because I worked for that degree. I worked really, really, really hard. There were courses that I failed and failed and failed. There are certain courses that I did 4 times just because I could not figure out how to study this material in a way that it would stick in my brain for long enough to take this test. Because many of you listeners might relate to this. If it's boring, I'm not interested. So the history of the welfare state, which was taught by a lovely professor, was not interesting to me. And not only was it not interesting, what I needed to learn and what I needed to remember were specific dates and specific events and what came first and what came second. And like, who cares? I don't care. And I shoved that information into my brain for 4 semesters in a row until I got a good enough grade to pass that class. And yet when I looked back at that, my inner dialogue was, you big stupid idiot. You can't even pass a basic history course that everyone else in your class can pass. And I knew the people in my class, a lot of them, not smart, not particularly good at school, not particularly good at life, just whatever. And they were excelling in these classes that I was failing. So what does that mean? It must mean I'm stupid. Now, when I look back, I'm amazed at my grit and my tenacity to do the same course 4 times, fail 3 times. The second time I took that exam, I got a 12%, like a 12 out of 100. Wild. And I did it again and again, and I passed. That's one example, not even a traumatic example of what it took for me to get my degree. So what does fear of success look like? And fear of success, let's start with this. Fear of success it's a weird term because it's not really fear of success so much. It almost stems from like not knowing when you're close to success and when you're far, because you hit a stumbling block that feels huge. So you're scared to push through the stumbling block because what if you're not actually good at the things that you think that you're good at? What if you're just going to try again and fail again? So fear of success and fear of failure are kind of twins, or I don't know, maybe 2 sides of the same coin, because it's all the same. And it all comes from your internalized messages of yourself. And for people with ADHD, that internalized message is often, I can't do this. I can't stick with it. I'm lazy. I'm not good enough. And that's pretty much almost always not true. So before we can tackle fear of success, we need to know what it actually looks like in real life. Spoiler alert, it's not obvious. It's usually hiding in plain sight, right in front of your face. Fear of success can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. It can look like procrastinating or freezing up before you complete a big task. So in my university example, that's, procrastinating huge papers until the end, or in some instances, procrastinating so much and then freezing up and not being able to complete those papers. I was just looking at my transcript and I remembered that in my second year of my degree, we participated in a course called Methods. And the Methods course is a course that you have to do throughout your entire degree in order to accompany the field work that you're doing in social work. So you do your field work, and then you have a class called Methods where you learn about the different techniques that you're engaged in with your clients in your field work. And in my second year of Methods, the last paper was just like, I was not doing well with my mental health. I had just had my first child. I was suffering from postpartum depression. I was in school with her all the time. So when I was in school, I was wearing her and she was with me. And when I was doing field work, I had a friend watching her. It was just a lot. And I never submitted my final paper. And I was so nervous to go and talk to my professor and tell her like what was going on and just let her know that I needed a little bit of help. So I didn't. I just didn't. I didn't go and ask for help, even though looking back, it's so obvious that that's what you should do. You should go and ask for help. And I'm sure she would have understood and she would have given me an extension or something. But I just didn't submit my paper. I got a 60 in the class because my grades from before were good enough even to compensate for the 50% grade that I ended up getting a 0 on. And that was that. I moved on. And I have this grade on my transcript that's not really reflective of my abilities in that course, but is reflective of where I was at the time and where my mental health was at the time, and the fact that I just didn't prioritize that. Fear of success can also look like overcommitting to other projects as a distraction. I don't want to do this thing that I'm doing right now, so I'm going to commit to a whole bunch of other stuff. You get distracted with it. You'll feel like you are productive, and that feeling of productivity kind of saves you from feeling bad about the thing that you're not doing. Fear of success can also look like downplaying achievements or not celebrating milestones, right? Like in the case of passing that course, History of the Welfare State, that I did 4 times. That's a massive milestone to hit an obstacle after obstacle after obstacle after obstacle in the same area and keep going and keep pushing through and talk to the professor and try studying in different ways. And I didn't for 1 second at the time celebrate the achievement of passing that class, and then quitting right when you're about to reach a goal. So like I said, I started getting this degree in 2010. It is now 2025, and I just now submitted my final request to get my degree after fighting with the university tooth and nail for the past 4 years. Because 4 years ago, I quit when I had one more class to go. Because that one class that I had to go was simply too big of an obstacle for me to tackle. And because I felt like I had already used up all of my options. I had already asked for help. I had already extended myself as much as I could. Everybody already thought that I was a flaky failure who was never going to graduate. And it was easier to just not. Because otherwise I would have had to fight for myself and advocate for myself again with people who just weren't listening to me. And I have never felt so alone in my life as when I decided to believe everything that they were telling me about myself. Whew. Sorry, I just got a little bit emotional. I decided to believe everything that they were saying about me, which is that everyone else can do this. If you can't do this, that's a you problem. Because we have helped you in every way that we can, and you're simply not able to be helped. That's why I don't love the term fear of success. Because I'll take the success, but not if it comes with the constant need to justify myself and explain myself and make myself be seen and heard to somebody, or in this case, an entire academic institution who had no desire to see or hear me. If any of this feels familiar, I'm sorry to tell you that you're not alone. I'm also glad to tell you that you're not alone, because you're not alone. But it's really surprisingly common for people with ADHD. to give up on ourselves. But why? Why do we do this? Why does success or this goal that we worked for so hard, why does it scare us so much? And what are the things that are blocking us? So the common ADHD, I mean, everybody has some fear of success. Everybody has blockers in their life. This is not ADHD specific. What makes it very unique for people with neurodivergencies is, again, this misunderstanding the person who's standing in front of you. I don't know if you remember the scene in Titanic where Rose is describing what it feels like to live in her life. And she's this rich girl and she's talking to Jack. She's describing her life to him. And she says, poor little rich girl, you must think like I have everything. And how could I possibly be complaining? But it just feels like I'm standing in the middle of a room screaming at the top of my lungs and nobody even looks up. And that's what it felt like for me. I felt like I was doing everything that I could to ask for help and to get help in the way I needed, and nobody was even looking up. So let's talk about some of these reasons for this fear of success, as we're calling it. And until I come up with a better term, that's what we're going to call it for this episode. But there are 4 main things that we're going to talk about. The first is fear of expectations. There's a massive pressure on everybody to maintain or exceed success, right? When you hit a bar, now you need to hit the next thing. If you start at a place of employment, you're supposed to want to climb the ladder. You're supposed to want to improve. You're supposed to want to get promotions. You're supposed to constantly be topping your own successes up and up and up and up and up. And the pressure to maintain that curve is astronomical and also, frankly, impossible. You cannot keep growing and expanding at the same speed forever and ever and ever indefinitely. You are not AI. You are a human being. And that's not part of your purpose on this planet, to exceed your productivity or your success according to someone else's measure. The fear of expectation also looks like worrying about ability to meet future demands. And what that looked like for me was the only thing I have ever known that I'm good at is people. I'm good at people. I like people. People like me. I get them. They don't really get me, but that's okay. It's not really necessary. And what if I am not actually going to be good at this? What if I like it, but I'm not actually going to do well at it? And I've already gone through this whole thing and everyone is expecting me to do well, but what if I don't? Which leads us to imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is one of those terms that's kind of thrown around a lot, but what it basically means is I feel like I'm a big fat phony. And all of us have that sometimes, but a lot of us have it like when we are being a big fat phony. There's a lot of fake it till you make it in this world, and I'm a big fan. Go ahead and fake it till you make it. If you are able to pretend yourself into doing a good job, that's amazing. But imposter syndrome is deeper than that. It's the syndromic version of that. You feel like a big fat phony even when you're not. Even when you have the knowledge and the experience and the expertise to back up what you're saying and doing, you still feel like you're an imposter. And it's the belief that success happened by accident or that you didn't deserve it. Like it just happened upon you and it wasn't something that you worked for to bring about. And that comes with it the fear of being like discovered or found out, that people are going to now figure out that I am an imposter and they are going to, I don't know what people do to imposters, like put them in the middle of the town square and point fingers and laugh or something. I don't know. But they're going to know. How are they going to know? They're going to know. How are they going to know? They're not going to know. Nobody's going to know. And usually they don't. The third thing is being overwhelmed by unknown. I know this. This is familiar to me. I have mastered this. I'm going to stay in this thing. I am in school. I know how to be a student. I've mastered being a student. I'm going to remain in school and remain a student because that's a safe place for me. If I go somewhere else, it's a new role, it's new responsibilities. There's more visibility. There's more eyes pointing at me and listening to what I'm saying. And like, what if? And then you go back to the imposter syndrome and the fear of expectations of others and the fear of your own expectations. And then, something that's very human, which is a fear of change. Success often means stepping out of your comfort zone. It often means going into something new. So for me, in my case, it would have been graduating from university and then needing to work within the field in a new environment with something that's completely unfamiliar to me. And change is scary. That wasn't my biggest challenge, but it's definitely worth highlighting because change is scary for a lot of us. Now, what happens if you take those four things, the fear of expectations, the imposter syndrome, being overwhelmed with the unknown, and the fear of change, and you add into it societal expectations of human beings that don't apply to you as somebody with ADHD who has ADHD, and your internalized shame that you have about generally being like a poorly functioning human, it turns the volume up on all of those fears. So it's not just a little voice saying like, how are they going to know? They're never going to know. It's a debilitating, paralyzing force saying, no, ma'am, you can't do this. But what is the cost of sabotaging ourselves? What happens to us when we do? What if we let the fear of success take over? It's always fixable. But first, let's talk about what happens. Missed opportunities. When I moved to the United States, if I had had my degree in social work, with my background in training with criminal offenders, which is my background and what I love to do, work with criminal offenders. If I had that, my degree with the particular background that I had, there was a job waiting for me. That just fell into place through COVID and through some other personal connections that I had. There was a job for me as a social worker coordinating medical care for inmates and residents of jails, right in line with what I love to do and what I want to do. And I was not eligible for that job because I didn't have my degree. And that was a tremendous missed opportunity for me. And something that really reinforced my negative self-talk and the way that I spoke to myself. Like, see, your dumbass really, really messed it up for yourself this time. I knew I was not good enough. I knew I could never do it. And now, like, what am I supposed to do? It's already happened. How am I going to go back in time? How am I going to change what happened? And then through it, while you're going through this turmoil, you really are set up for prime opportunities to damage your relationships and your professional connections. There are people at the university, if they saw my name on a piece of paper, would not accept a meeting with me. They just wouldn't. Because from their perspective, they really did everything that they could to help me. From my perspective, they're wrong. And I needed different help than what they were offering me. But they wouldn't take a meeting with me. To the point that in my first year of field work, I was working in the geriatric rehabilitation ward of a hospital. And like I had mentioned, I had both of my children while I was in school getting my degree. And when I interviewed for that particular position, I was 7 or 8 months pregnant. And when I started, I was a brand new mom of like 5 days when I started that particular position. And the feedback that I got at the end of the year was, You presented yourself as one thing, as very capable. And I was very capable. And I presented myself the way that I was. But then I had a baby. And for anyone who has had a baby, you know that that changes literally everything about your life. It changes your brain chemistry. It changes the way that you are. It changes the way that you interact in the world. It changes your ability to get things done. It just changes everything. And I had gotten that particular position where no other second year in the history of the university had ever gotten that particular position, because it was such a demanding role that they normally reserved it for third years. But I was so impressive in my interview that they gave me that position. And I really did my best. I worked as hard as I could that year. And there were definitely some bumps. The biggest bump were my reports, because every week you're required to submit reports of every conversation that you've had with every client. So my request for assistance was, can I please not submit he said, she said, he said, she said reports, or can I do them in English? Both of which were denied. So I was required to do a transcription of the conversation from memory in Hebrew, and then a full analysis in Hebrew as well of each line of the conversation. What they did for me to help me was give me fewer clients at the beginning of the year. But I didn't want fewer clients. I just wanted less writing. It's not that I couldn't handle the workload of the people. It's that I couldn't handle the workload when I was at home. But that request was denied. And the feedback that I got from at the end of the year from my boss's boss, my supervisor's supervisor, was that I presented myself in the interview differently than the way I showed up throughout the year. And that I misrepresented myself in the interview. She was basically planting the seed of my imposter syndrome that didn't exist at the time, or it did to a certain degree, but I knew that I was doing a good job in my client work. And I don't really remember what I said to her at the time. But if I could talk to her now, let me talk to her directly and say that you're right. I was very different in the interview than I was when I started fieldwork, because you interviewed somebody who was pregnant with their first child, and you got somebody who was a brand new first-time mom. I was different, and I did my best within that. And it was irresponsible of you not to take that into consideration when you were hiring me for that role. So if by any chance she listens to this podcast, girl, that message was for you. I don't even know if you know who you are. But if you know who you are, that particular message was for you. You're the one who messed up. I'm not an imposter. I didn't fake anything. I came and showed up exactly as I was, to the best of my ability. And you were unable to bring the best out of me and to provide me with the assistance that I needed in the moment. Regardless, that definitely damaged that particular professional connection. And please know that self-sabotage doesn't make you weak or unworthy or even dumb. It's a coping mechanism born out of fear. And what are we scared of? We're scared of the exact thing that happened to me in that feedback session with my supervisor's supervisor. We're scared that somebody is going to sit in front of you and say, you are not as good as you think you are. Not only are you not as good as you think you are, everything that you've been presenting about yourself is a lie. And we see through your smoke screen. And I will tell you from personal experience that that conversation is heartbreaking. And it destroyed my self-confidence completely. Not permanently, but completely at the time. But what's the other lesson that we learn from that particular feedback conversation? She was wrong. She was wrong about me. She was looking at me and measuring me according to metrics that even at this point, when I look back at myself, I do not think are important. How many reports did I submit on time or late is not an important metric of my success. How were my patients? Did everyone go home with a comprehensive plan? Did I advocate and argue on their behalf? How were their family members? Were they cared for? Were they listened to? Were they supported when their loved one was in the hospital? Did I communicate and coordinate appropriately with the community healthcare system? The answers to all of that are a resounding yes. And you have the unmitigated gall to tell me that I'm an imposter because my reports came in a week late? Genuinely, go F yourself. And I mean that from the bottom of my butt. You can take that shitty opinion and shove it somewhere where no one has to ever see it again. Fear is born out of what other people tell you about yourself. And those coping mechanisms to avoid that fear, again, are there to protect you from other people who could just be totally freaking wrong. But it makes sense that you have that fear. It makes sense that it exists. And again, that self-sabotage doesn't make you weak or unworthy. It means that the messages that you've internalized have led to a coping mechanism that does not serve you because you're an adult now. And you get to tell yourself whatever you want to tell yourself. Other people's shitty opinions don't matter anymore because you can choose not to listen to them in a way that you couldn't really have decided for yourself as a child. Whew. So let's get to the good stuff. How do we work through this and actually embrace our success without freaking out? First of all, we redefine success. What someone else thinks about you and their measures and metrics are not success. How many reports did I submit on time is not a measure of success. I get to define success for myself. I can focus on my personal growth, small wins, not only big milestones, celebrating success and as it happens, step by step. Because success does not have to look the same for everyone. You get to determine what success means. And as somebody with ADHD, you're probably going to get distracted along the way. Okay? And that doesn't mean that you have to abandon your complete and entire goal. You just have to set realistic expectations. Break your goals down into manageable chunks. And then every time you accomplish one of those chunks, celebrate it. That is progress. The final outcome is not the only thing that matters. I still, to this day, January 2025, do not have my degree in my hand. Hopefully I will soon. But who knows? Because every other time I've tried to finish my degree, the university has come up with one more thing that I have yet to do. Another fine to pay, another course to do, another hoop to jump through. So if I only look at obtaining my degree and having that piece of paper, that is the outcome. That's the only thing I can celebrate. That's the only thing that's a worthwhile achievement. What I'm doing is disregarding not only my progress throughout, but my success throughout. All of the knowledge that I gained, all of the experience that I have, everything that I've learned, that's mine. That belongs to me. I don't need your piece of paper to tell me that. The other side of that is I am going to get that piece of paper because I earned it. I did everything that I needed to do to earn that degree. And I'm not going to be satisfied by lying to myself and saying that it's fine. It doesn't really matter. The degree doesn't matter. I have all the knowledge in my head. Yeah, I do. And no one can take that away from me. But that degree is mine. And I'm not going to give up on myself. We celebrate the progress, not just the outcome. But even when you've made it so far, don't stop. Hit the next step, the next goal, the next manageable chunk that you can. And the most important thing that we know is that we need a strong support system surrounding us. Surround yourself with people who can understand you, who understand your ADHD, who can encourage you without pressuring you. And find yourself someone mean who is going to pressure you. For me, that's my sister. And the reason that the kind of pressure that she applies works is because she gets it. Not once did she ever say to me, why didn't you do this? Or why weren't you able to do this? She said, why didn't they give you the help that you needed? She flipped it. She flipped the whole script for me and reframed it into why I should be freaking angry that I was mistreated. And that anger allowed me to get back into it. And it really woke up my justice fighter side to go back and fight for myself and to get that damn degree because I earned it. And whenever I didn't want to deal with it anymore and I got frustrated, she reminded me about it again and again and again and again. And often, over and over for the past 4 years, she has checked in with me and reminded me, 5 years, she has checked in with me and reminded me that I can do this, that I'm not the failure here, that there's a system that failed me, that there are people that failed me, that I worked as hard as I could, and that it would be a disservice to myself to stop working when I'm so close to the finish line. And she led me to that mindset shift of replacing, what if I fail after this? To, what if I'm freaking awesome? What if I keep growing? What if I'm amazing? What if this wasn't even the final outcome in the first place? It's just another tool to get me to where I want to go. And in order to get there, I had to learn to sit with discomfort, to practice being in the moment, mindfulness, living now. Journaling helps with that as well. To process the emotions as they come up and to shift your mindset from one of victimhood to one of warriorhood. Acknowledge and accept the fear rather than running from it. The fear is going to exist. It is always going to be there. There's always going to be something new that you are scared of. And if you choose to take that fear and eat it, use it as your fuel for your fight, that's how you become a warrior and move away from being a victim and shift your mindset into knowing that you know what you need and that it is possible that everyone else is wrong. Because when I didn't get that degree, I had to pivot everything, and I did. And I'm now well on my way to building my second successful company, and I did it without the degree. And I did it in spite of all of the people who told me that I couldn't. And I did it despite the help that no one gave me. And I did it despite the expectation that I be academically successful. I can be successful in any way that I define it. Academic success is lower down on my list. And that's okay. Remember, the goal isn't to be fearless. Being brave doesn't mean not feeling fear. Being brave means doing it scared. You have to learn how to keep moving forward when you are scared, even when fear is part of the equation, because it's going to exist and things are going to go wrong and you're going to be scared, and that's normal. But how do you keep moving forward? So just a couple of reminders. Progress doesn't have to be linear. Success is not what we were always taught, of doing well in school so you can get into a good college, so you can do well in school, so you can get a good job, so you can do well there, so you can get a promotion. Our world is not linear like that. And if you are ADHD, your brain is not linear like that. It's okay to stumble or to move on a winding path as long as you keep moving. You don't have to take the quickest route from A to B. A to B is just birth to death. So why are you trying to take the quickest route to get there? Like, what is the end point? Dying. So, like, what are we wasting time? Like, why are we worrying about how quickly we're getting there? That's weird. And let's reframe success. Success in the home where I grew up is academic achievements. Success is getting good grades. So because I'm a person who didn't get particularly good grades, because when I was in elementary school, I got good grades, but I never really paid attention. And then when I was in high school, I never really paid attention because I didn't really need to. And then when I needed to start paying attention, I was able to catch up pretty quickly. So even in subjects that were difficult for me, I ended up getting an 80 or an 85. And subjects that were easy for me, I got a 95 or a 99. But anything that was difficult for me, I really got bad grades. And in my household, that meant that I was not a successful person. It meant that I was wasting my potential. It meant that I must be lazy. It meant that I was throwing away my opportunities. But you can't tell me that I'm not a successful person just because I don't have a degree yet. I have an amazing life. I have amazing kids. I have strong relationships. I have an incredible business. I have a dedicated and loyal team. I have a healthy body. I'm strong. I have a strong mind and I have a strong body. You cannot tell me that I'm not successful, because success isn't just about your achievements. You're not a checklist. You are a person. It's about progress. It's about growth. It's about resilience. It's about the next time you face a challenge, how quickly are you going to get up? It's about grit. And honestly, like success is just a platform. It doesn't make you a different person. It gives you more opportunities to show up as yourself. Because when you're successful and you have the degrees or you have the money or you have the whatever stamp of approval you require to be successful, that means that you can show up authentically 100% yourself, because can't nobody tell you shit anymore. I already have what I was trying to obtain. So what does that mean? It means that the voices of somebody else have less of an impact on you because you've redefined success for yourself. And you know what is true and what is not true. So let's practice. How are you going to embrace your success this week? Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you made it this far, grab yourself a cookie on the way out, because damn, I've been babbling for a minute. It is normal to fear success. And again, it's not really fearing success. It is normal to act the way that you act based on all of your experiences surrounding what success is and what it is not as a person with ADHD. And your success is going to look different, and it's going to be a little bit more winding, a little bit more of a winding road than someone else. That doesn't have to stop you from thriving. You're the decider. You get to not only define success for yourself, you get to decide on the path. You get to decide on the side quests and on the adventures and where you're going to pivot and where you're going to stick to it. And you get to decide what the end goal is. And if ever you choose to stop, you can always pick it back up another time. Your life can look like anything that you believe it can look like. And that's not to say that it's going to be easy to get there. It's just possible. Please tell us about your experiences. Tell us about your fear of success. Tell us about the time that you skipped a deadline or procrastinated too much or just generally sabotaged yourself. Connect with us on Facebook, on our group, Trust Yourself, Trust the Process, where we go through the 12 stages that you need to get from misery to knowing that you know the truth for yourself. Follow us at Avy-HD on all socials and anywhere that podcasts are available. And please subscribe, rate the podcast, leave us a review, talk to us. We want to know you. and grow this podcast so we can reach more people who get it. Because a lot of people in this world they just don't get it. And that sucks. But y'all get it. Thank you so much, squirrels, for being here with me this week. I appreciate you. I love you. And I will see you next week. Bye.